They got all this way undefeated, but the House of Lords has given the government its first bloody nose over Brexit. They voted for an amendment which guarantees the right of EU citizens to stay in the UK. Joining us now is the former Conservative Party leader, Lord Howard, who voted against the amendment. Good to see you this morning, Lord Howard. Thank you for coming in. We had Baroness Smith on earlier on saying it's hugely important that the Lords send this amendment back to the Commons so they can have a look at it and take into account EU citizens and British citizens and get that written into law before they start the triggering of Article 50. You don't agree?
No, I don't agree. I think there was a case for the government to do something unilaterally, but the government, perfectly reasonably, have to have in mind the rights of the million Brits, the million British nationals who live in other countries of the European Union. And so the government is saying, perfectly reasonably, we want a reciprocal deal. The Prime Minister tried to get a reciprocal deal at the end of last year. But Chancellor Merkel and President Tusk weren't interested. They said you can't do anything until you've activated Article 50. So my position is, let's get on with it. Let's activate Article 50 just as soon as we can, and then let's negotiate a proper reciprocal agreement. We all, I think everybody in the House of Lords last night wants EU nationals to stay, expects EU nationals to stay. It's unrealistic to expect anything else. But there's a strong argument that the negotiations should be reciprocal.
There's two issues here, aren't there? The one is the rights of EU citizens and British citizens, but the other is the position of the Lords and whether this delays the triggering of Article 50. And that is, many people who voted for Brexit are concerned that the Lords is now acting as a brake on that happening. And
I am one of them, Susanna. I quite agree with that. And I think it all depends. So the government has said it's going to try and reverse this in the Commons, which I expect it's going to be able to do.
Now, tell us how that happens, because, you know, for any of us who aren't, you know, perfectly across the intricacies of parliamentary democracy, this now goes back...
It goes back to the House of Commons.
Yes. Now, there is this process called ping-pong,
yes,
where it just bounces between the two, and that's what everyone is worried is going to hold up
you're
Article 50.
Spot on, absolutely
How does the House of Commons make sure that this amendment gets taken off this bill?
Well,
I mean, you know, maybe MPs will vote for it.
Well, I think they've already voted. They voted on this amendment, and they rejected it by 42. And I expect they will reject it again when it goes back to them. So then it'll come back to the House of Lords. And I hope that, I mean, the rationale of the people who voted for the amendment yesterday was, let's give the House of Commons time to think again. Let's give them the opportunity to think again. Well, the House of Commons will have had that opportunity. So I very much hope that when it comes back to the Lords, they won't insist on the amendment again.
Baroness Smith was adamant that this won't slow down the triggering of Article 50. It seems to us, from the outside, and we may be wrong, that that's exactly what it's going to do, because it means Theresa May's not going to have as clear a path to get it done. But she says it doesn't have to happen, take ages for it to happen. It can happen very quickly, and she can still trigger Article 50 by the end of March.
Well, your argument is the one I put in the House of Lords last night. But it all depends what happens when it comes back to the Lords, to be accurate. If, when it comes back, the House of Lords does not insist on the amendment, and I really hope that it won't, then the Prime Minister can still activate Article 50 by the end of the month. I'd like her to activate it sooner. I want us to get on with this, and I'm sure, you know, the majority of the people in our country who voted for Brexit want us to get on with it. And that's the way to protect the rights of the EU citizens who are here. Get on with it.
So that that can be negotiated. Because I can imagine, if you're an EU citizen here at the moment and there are 3 million of that group, it's a pretty insecure time. And for the million Brits who live in the EU.
Yes, it is, for all of them. That's why we need to get on with it. Let's minimise the uncertainty. Let's get on with it as soon as we can.
Lord Howard, thanks very much indeed.
Good
to see you this morning.